Well, welcome back with us. This is episode 5 of our Fresh Start podcast. If this is your first month joining with us, welcome. We are excited that you've decided to join. Like, share, subscribe, and join our Fresh Start family. If you are joining back with us and you've listened to our other ones, thank you for being a part of the first of your month, and we're excited that we could kick this off with you. We've been going since September on the first day of each month with this Fresh Start podcast, and we're excited to see where this will continue to go and what we'll do with it. But this month, as we are jumping off a new year, 2021, congratulations, you made it if you're listening to this. 2020, a year that felt like a decade, but we are kicking off a new year, 2021. I don't know, some of us probably thought this day would never come, but we're here. And we're hoping that we can start fresh. And so that's exactly what we're wanting to do today with this podcast. You're probably jumping into this new year wanting a lot of different things to happen. With a new year comes new opportunities, comes a new focus, and it really does feel like a fresh start as you start January 1st each and every year. And our topic that we're going to talk about today is the idea of the year of return. And we'll go into a little more detail later on about what that exactly means. But we're going to start off with some New Year's resolutions. You're jumping into the year and you have different things that you're wanting to do. So we're going to jump into some resolutions. Guys, what do you think are the top New Year's resolutions that people have each and every year?
I'm going to go the Sunday school answer. I'm going to read my Bible more.
Read the Bible more, okay.
Lose weight.
Lose weight.
Get school done.
Get some school done. So maybe I'm going to travel more. I'm going to save money this year. We all have these different resolutions. I haven't looked it up, but I would imagine the average is probably like a week, maybe 2. I wouldn't say most people probably make a full year. Maybe you are one of the exceptions, and maybe you've been killing it, and all of 2020, somehow you kept with your resolution. But this is, according to ABC, they surveyed 275,000 Americans, and these were the top 10 of what their 2020 New Year's resolutions would be. So as we're rolling into 2021, we can think about it. So number 10, stay motivated. People did not know in 2020 how hard that one would be. That was a tough one. Number 9, upgrade my technology. That's a good resolution. You know, Apple, if you're an Apple user, kind of forces you into that a lot of ways. You don't have a choice in many aspects to upgrade your technology. Be a better person. I think, going to Walmart through the pandemic, there's some people who should make this their resolution and try to stick to it.
For real.
Be a better person. Be more healthy. So we talked about that, whether that's eating, going to the gym. Number 5, be happier or have better mental health. Again, those making this in 2020 did not realize what they were actually asking for. Tough year for happiness and mental health. Number 4, lose weight and diet. Number 3, eat more of my favorite foods. I don't know if those two things go hand in hand. Number 2, try something new. And the number 1 New Year's resolution is actually doing my New Year's resolution. So people said across the board, number 1 thing I want to do is actually do anything at all, actually. I want to actually stick to something. So, guys, what are your goals? What are you wanting to do for 2021 just in yourself? What are some things you're wanting to do?
I think mine would be keep on going on the path of losing weight and building muscle and staying in the gym. And the main one overall is get my GED done and get my education in the place where it needs to be.
So for those who don't know Matt's weight loss and fitness journey, starting about March of 2020 or so to now, which would be January 2021, Matt's lost 75, 80 pounds, something like that. Yeah. So he's almost lost a full me. And so Matt is cutting weight, working on his GED, doing some great things. What are some other goals we have?
I just got promoted, fun fact. And
congratulations.
Thank you. I'm now an investigator. Start on the 10th of January in my new job.
Detective Zach.
Yeah, so y'all better watch out. I'm in the violent crimes unit. So, but a goal of mine would be to just learn that craft and become, the best investigator that I can be, and just see where that God takes that.
I have a goal. Maybe I'm speaking too early before I submit these to Clay and the rest of our personnel staff for the next year. But I do have one goal that I would like to plant 2 FCAs in some of the K through 8s in our town around here, because I think that's a big need and a big opportunity that we could have to minister to some K through 8 schools around here.
Yeah, I would say for me, this will be the first year that I'm going into where education is not on my goal, which is probably the most exciting thing I've ever said. So one of my goals is just to be able to do better at the different job functions that I have here. So with Alex kind of talking about starting some new ministries, there's a couple of new ministry things I'm wanting to focus on here. As far as just kind of a personal goal, I'm wanting to, again, try to be healthier and just be more active, not necessarily running, but maybe exercise or just things where just to keep my body active. And so submit some of your New Year's resolutions. If you have some that you think are good, man, comment that in the comment section. Maybe if you have different ways that you stick to your goals and you do a good job of this, help us out and give us some tips, because that is the number one thing people are looking for across America is how do I keep my New Year's resolutions. And so if 2021 is going to be a year of return, it's all about us making goals and sticking to them. And I would encourage, look at your goals often. Don't just write a goal in January and then come next January and go, how did I do about that? Or what did I don't even know what goals I made. Write them down, put them in a place you can look at, go back to them once a month, once a quarter. And if you're not doing great at it, don't just throw it out, but start over. That's a great thing, I think, about kind of a year of return. This idea of year of return is something that I've been chewing on as I've been thinking about, okay, what do I want 2021 to be for me, and what do I think would be good for us to just communicate to people? It's not a stretch of the mind that 2020 was a tough year, right? And so we probably got away from a lot of things that we wish we wouldn't have got away from. In-person communication, contact with your friends and your family, maybe even your devotion that you had toward things, whether it was working out or going to church or whatever these different things. We probably got away from a lot of that because we've been trying to focus on our own personal health or the health of others, and that's an important thing, and we need to focus on that. We need to be smart, and we need to do all those things. But there are some things that we've gotten away from that really didn't impact. We, I think, used 2020 as an excuse to get away from some things that it really didn't make sense. Your quiet time, there's no reason your quiet time should be impacted. Actually, you've had more time now to be with God than at any time before because so many things have been canceled. And so if you haven't opened your Bible and started reading, it's not because of lack of time. That's definitely something that when we're jumping into 2021, we can't make that excuse. Well, I just didn't have the time to do that. We actually had more time than we could imagine. So if you're not doing it, it's lack of discipline, not lack of time. And a story that I think is good is found in Luke 15. It's the story of the prodigal son. We have all probably heard this story or a version of this story, but the prodigal son basically goes like this. There's a son whose father was very wealthy, and he wanted to go on ahead and start living for the world and living his way and not under his father's roof. So he asks his father to just go on ahead and give him his inheritance. So he's pretty much like, Dad, whatever you'll give me when you die, just go on ahead and give it to me now so I don't have to live under your rules. I don't have to live under your roof. I can go and I can live how I want to. And so he goes out and he lives it up. He lives for the world. He does everything that the world would tell him would make him happy. And he quickly, over the course of however many time the story doesn't tell us, runs out of money, runs out of friends, runs out of all those relationships. The world is not his oyster like he thought it was going to be. And he finds himself a Jewish man in the pig slop doing whatever he can to make a nickel, doing whatever he can to find food. And he starts thinking, you know what? The slaves at my father's house have it better than I have it right now. So I'm just going to go back. I'm going to beg my father for forgiveness, and I'm just going to work as a servant in my father's house. So he makes the journey back home. His father sees him from a long way off. He runs. He meets him. He accepts him with open arms. He restores to him all of the different benefits that he gets for being a son in his family. And he says, we're going to throw a party, we're going to throw a feast. Now, the other brother, who had been at home the whole time, had been a faithful son, he got jealous. He got not only jealous, he got mad at his dad and said, Dad, this is garbage. I've been here the whole time. This other son has ruined our family name. He's thrown away his inheritance, and now you're just going to accept him back. And the father tells him this, my son is back, and I'm forgiving him. And what is it to you? Because this was my money that I gave away, and it's my money that I'm giving him now. This doesn't impact you. And through this story of the prodigal son, through this story of return, there's different things that we can look at. The first thing is the world's enticement. And that's really on the prodigal son, the son that ran away. And working with student ministry, being just a guy in the world entices us in a lot of ways. I've seen a lot of students who have the same mindset that this son had. If I can just get out from under my parents' roof, if I can just get out from their rules and I can live life my own way, man, my parents are just so backwards. They just don't have the world figured out. Life is easy if they would just do it this way. And then I've seen so many already in my short time in student ministry who have tried to go out just like this prodigal son and live it up, thinking that they got it all figured out. And before they know it, they've hit rock bottom, just like this son has hit. And so as you're entering in 2021, as you're making goals, I would just say the world is going to entice you to say that it has got it all figured out. And if you just put your faith and hope and trust in the world, then that'll be the way to go. And I'll just tell you this, just like the prodigal son, you are going to be sorely grieved if you do that. You are sorely mistaken if you think that this world has anything to offer you that'll be good for you. And so while it might look good on the outside, you're going to find out quickly, just like this prodigal son, that the world actually is a facade. It's a fake. You might have fun for a moment, but it is fleeting, and it will leave you empty, always wanting more. You'll never be satisfied. So the first thing we see is the world's enticement. But not only do we see the world's enticement, we see the son really get caught up in that, but we see forgiveness, and we see the father being the key component of forgiveness in this story.
Yeah, I love the father's forgiveness because, Ryan, like you said at the very beginning of that, the son goes to the dad and says, hey, I want everything. I want my inheritance. And we all know that you get your inheritance once someone passes away. So the son literally just looked at his dad and said, I wish you were dead. That's literally what he said. And so the father gives him his share of the inheritance, and he goes off. And then the story comes back, and as you read the story in Luke 15, the father is waiting on the front porch, looking down the road for his son. Like, he didn't know that the son was going to be coming back that day. So that tells me, just good old common sense, that this was a daily routine for the father, to be standing there looking down the road to see if his son was coming back. And then he sees his son off in the distance, and it says he sprints to him, and that's completely uncustomary for Jewish men. Like, this father is sprinting to his son. I mean, I just like picture him like picking up his little robe and running in his chacos going out to see his son. You know, that's like the mental picture that I get here. And it's a beautiful picture of Jesus, and it's a beautiful picture of God and the Holy Spirit. Like, Jesus says, you know, those who draw near to me, I'm going to draw near to you. Like, the son was coming back home, and as he's drawing near to the father is sprinting to him. And so that tells me that no matter how far I stray, how far a Christian strays, like, God is waiting for us to come to our senses and look around and see that we're in a pig slop of life and say, look, I need your forgiveness. I had it so much better. I have screwed up, and I know that you're waiting on the front porch of the house to sprint down the road to come meet me. So the father's forgiveness is huge in this story.
So a story of return, the year of return. You have the world's enticement, the son who runs away, the father's forgiveness, and then you have unforgiveness shown in this story. Sadly, a lot of us, we're holding on to unforgiveness this year. Maybe somebody did something to us. Maybe we were not even in the wrong. And we see the brother as kind of the character of unforgiveness.
One of the things that I see here with this brother, we see him as we read this story as the villain. And I think we fail to ever want to identify with the villain of the story. We want to be the hero. We want to be the guy who returned. We want to be the guy, the father who forgave and, you know, has this glorious, exciting moment with his son. And we want to push the brother in our mind and say, that's not us. We could never be that. But I think far too often in our own lives, more than what we want to admit, that we can be that brother sometimes, the guy who, we have worked hard, we've done everything right according to the standards that are put around us. We have done everything that needs to be done. And at the end of the day, we don't get that promotion. We don't get that grade we were expecting. We didn't get into the college we were anticipating. But yet we look around us and our friends are getting that extra playing time that we thought we deserved and work hard for. Or our friends are getting accepted into the college that we thought we deserved to get accepted into. Or we have been working so hard all these years in high school at this part-time job, and we thought we deserved the pay raise and not the person who's been there for 2 or 3 months. And we become very bitter and unforgiving to the people who are around us, and we fail to be excited. I remember in my own life as a high school student, that exact thing happened when I was on our wrestling team. It was the end of my sophomore year, going into junior year. All of the captains had graduated. I thought in my mind I was a hard worker. I had one of the best records. I made good grades. I was a personable guy, and I'm like, surely I'm going to be one of the next captains for the coming year. And when the time came that our coach introduced who the captains were going to be for the year, it wasn't me. And I was like, this is ridiculous. I'm upset. I don't understand who these losers over here who barely have a winning record are, trying to tell me what to do. I work hard in this room. And I was pretty upset for a while, but I began to realize that bitterness and that unforgiveness is just making me in a worse situation. It's not affecting anybody else. Me being upset at somebody didn't make them feel any worse or make their day any worse. It just made me feel worse. And so there are times in our lives when maybe we feel like we deserve something but didn't get it. We think, the American phrase, well, that's not fair. I can't tell you how many times I've heard that in my life from students all the way up through senior adults when they say that's not fair, they're not being treated right, or whatever it may be. But at the end of the day, we have to understand that God is still working even when we don't see him. And when people are promoted, when people get into college or make grades or get playing time, whatever it may be, our call as Christians is twofold. One, it's to be excited for them and be thankful that God is working in their life and giving them opportunities to have a platform for what the abilities God has given. But two, to refuse to be bitter. And when we find ourselves being unforgiving or bitter, to go to our Father, just as the prodigal son did, to not be the brother who is angry and frustrated. The Bible even tells us, it says that, but he was angry and refused to even go in. So he threw a man tantrum over here and is saying, I'm not even going to go in to say hi to my brother. I'm so mad right now. But we have a call by Jesus to be forgiving for those who have sinned against us or for things that didn't happen our way, and to have a positive attitude about it.
So we have the world's enticement, we have forgiveness shown by the father, we have unforgiveness shown by the brother. So how do we respond to this? What do we do on this very familiar story with the prodigal son?
I think one of the ways to respond is like in the forgiveness part, whenever the father was running to his son, as in the father's always running to us. He's always by our side. We never left him. We've left him, but he's never left us. And I think our response is, if we don't know, God as our Father and our personal Savior, that we need to know him and, come to know him as our, Savior, and follow our ultimate or his ultimate purpose for our lives. And that is, sharing the gospel or forgiving people as he forgave us. But the ultimate one is, to share the gospel. And I think that's the main response that we need to have to the story.
Yeah. I think if you're listening to this, I would just encourage you, ask yourself, what do I need to return to this year? Maybe it's a relationship with somebody. Maybe it's the opposite of that, and it's cutting ties with people that you should have cut ties from a long time ago. And so you're like, I need to return to myself by letting go of these other people, letting go of their opinions, letting go of whatever, so I can actually be the person I want to be. Maybe it's returning to the task of, being faithfully committed to God. Maybe it is returning to your Father, maybe for the first time. Maybe you've spent your entire life running, trying to get acceptance from the world, and you've fallen into the world's enticement, and you just continually think, well, if I let this relationship, or if I get this job, or if I do this or that, then I'll be happy, then I'll be fulfilled. Stop chasing the things the world has to offer and be fulfilled by the Father. I pray that 2021 is a year of return for you. I pray that if you have been like the prodigal son running away, that you will be returning this year, that you'll be like the father and not the brother, and you will forgive if people in your life have done you wrong or whatever. And so 2021, the year of return. I pray that this year is a great year for you and your family, and it's one that is just one like any other, and not like how 2020 was a year unlike any other. So that is the story that we're going to talk about from the Bible. We always transition at the end and answer a few questions. And so we have some interesting ones today. They're kind of all over the board. So Alex is going to get us kicked off with, what is one common myth about student ministry that you want to debunk?
I think there probably are a lot of myths that we could probably spend an hour between the four of us chatting about, of the craziness we've experienced and what perception is not always reality in the case of student ministry. But one that just really came to my mind, and students, if you are listening, this also applies to you, not just workers and volunteers in student ministry, and that is that parents are not the enemy. Sometimes, in my experience, I've just a short few years that I've served in student ministry, parents can be sometimes more difficult than the students can be and cause more issues than the students can. And in your mind, you begin to get real frustrated sometimes, but you have to remember that they are not the enemy. They are your partners in ministry. They are the ones who spend the most times with their kids and grandkids and whoever it may be. So we still want to work with them and equip them and encourage them just as much as we can, the students. And if students, again, if you're listening out there, I know some days you may think your mom or dad is the enemy when they're telling you to do the dishes or clean your room, or you can't go to the friend's house, you need to focus on homework, but really they are doing their best to love and encourage you and strengthen you as you go through life and as you walk your Christian life. So I guess the one myth would be that the parents are not the enemy.
And parent, if you're listening to this, next time something upsets you, think, could I be used in a future podcast as the enemy? Because there are stories and situations where parents, even though you're not the enemy, you certainly try to be. And so, yes, parents are not the enemy to student pastors. Just like Alex said, man, parents are our greatest resource and tools and partners. And students, your parent is not your enemy either. Whether you don't like them most days, take it from the prodigal son. Your dad or your mom has your best interest in mind. And even though it doesn't make sense, there's a reason that they have a great fortune and you don't. And so yours will come one day.
I would love to use a parent in a podcast sometime, like it's a story. Because, you think, like, you do all these things, and you just think it's over with, they forgot it. But I can tell you personally that one time you might be reading a book, and you might realize that, oh, man, Ronald Long is using me as an example in this book.
He did.
He did. And he has told me multiple times that he has used me in, like, examples down in Texas. And so don't think for a second that we're not remembering these things that happen, because I don't even know what Ronald uses me as an example for, but he's doing it. So always be on your best behavior.
When a pastor's around, because you might be a sermon illustration or a podcast. All right. Question number 2. Do you pour your milk or your cereal first into the bowl?
Matt, you better answer this wisely.
There is only
cereal
one correct.
First.
Okay.
Yeah.
There is only one correct answer. I don't know what kind of psychopath pours their milk in
The only
first.
exception is whenever you've already had a bowl of cereal and you want to go back and have a second one.
Yes.
Did y'all ever have the bowls with, like, the straw built in?
Yes.
I don't even eat cereal, but when I did, like, that was the way to go. That was the way to go.
That was the move. Yes. If you listen to this podcast and you pour your milk in first, the only question I have for you is why.
What's
why
wrong
are
with
you
you?
the way that you are? Because that's not the correct way.
Are you okay? Feel like little splatters all over the place when you pour them.
You don't know
Exactly.
how much. You don't know. You're wasting really the whole experience because you're not getting the amount of cereal you need.
Yeah, it's true.
So I mean, it's just
like if you've tried to put ice in your soda at a gas station after you filled it up and you're like, oh, I need a little bit more ice, and you add it in there and just sprays everywhere, gets over the person next to you, and just doesn't end.
It's not the move.
Yeah,
it's not the move.
Y'all wild out there if you put your milk in first.
Be like Matt and put your cereal in first. Okay, number 3. This is not even a question, but it's just a statement. Make a bold prediction about 2021. Here is my bold prediction about 2021. The University of Tennessee Volunteers will again have a disappointing season, and me as a Vol fan will sit there every week with glorious expectation just to be let down yet again. just like every season since 1998.
This is our year.
Every year in January,
Every year's our year.
after we crash, I'm like, yeah, and I make an excuse. My bold prediction is that I'm ready to be hurt again.
Hey, but Bailey's the guy.
I do think Bailey is the guy. Another bold prediction.
He's the guy.
But in another way, they're going to break my heart just like they have for my entire life.
Zach's over here hoping that his Big Orange is going to be like his Cubbies and just make a random comeback for no reason, and then they're going to drop off again.
Go Cubs, go.
So that's my bold prediction, that the Vols are going to find a way to break my heart. Also, this is just a side note. If you want a sports team to do bad, just say, hey, Ryan, will you please root for them for a little while? Because I promise you, they will find a way to royally screw up their season. I don't think I've ever supported a team that's actually won anything. So.
Can you start supporting Bama then? I would appreciate
Roll
that.
Tide.
I really appreciate that.
Roll Tide, January 3rd is going to come out. Something happened with Nick Saban, and I'm sorry, but Roll Tide. There he goes. That's the only time I'll say it, is to try to reverse psychology, the sports god's universe. So, all right. Last question. How do you keep from giving up when you're working towards a goal? So this might be a good one. Start of the year, we're trying to set our goals. Zach, how do you keep from giving up when you're working towards a goal?
I think you should remember your why. Like, why did you start your goal, in the beginning? Like, okay, so a lot of people say they want to get in better shape. Well, when it's, morning 3 of that alarm going off an hour before it was, why did you start your goal? Or, if you're in a job, like take this promotion that I just got, for example. This is when they interviewed me and said, if everyone finishes equally, why should we pick you? And I said, because I started preparing for this before I even got hired in Madison County to begin with. Like, this was my goal, and from the start, I've been going to classes. I've been sitting in on interviews when no one even knew that I was in an interview booth. I was watching interviews. So you always have to remember your why, and that's the same as just life in general. Always remember your why. That's my biggest. That's probably the best advice I could give.
Yeah, remember your why. We are so glad that we've been able to kick off January 1st, 2021 with you. This is going to be the full podcast if you're listening to it on YouTube or any podcast network. If you want to catch weekly clips, you can go to our Instagram, our Facebook, and we will post snippets of this throughout the week. Through this month, but thank you for joining us. We will have another podcast that launches February the 1st, so you'll have to check out that as well. Make sure to share, to subscribe, let your friends and family know about this. If you have any questions or topics you would like us to talk about, submit those, and we will talk about it if it's good. So thanks again, and we hope that you have a fresh start to 2021. We'll see you next month.